Hello everybody, my name is Dalton Nelson, and I'd like to give my thoughts on a game I just beat. That game being Breath of Death 7, The Beginning, for PC. Breath of Death 7 is an RPG made by Zeboyd Games, a development team of 2 people. They've made games like Breath of Death 7. They've also made what I think is this game's companion piece, Cthulhu Saves the World, as well as Cosmic Star Heroines. I think they've made 5 RPGs in total. But what they've made here with Breath of Death 7 is a classic RPG experience made for those who have played RPGs before. I had bought this game and its companion piece because they are both bundled together and are usually very cheap. I think right now it's at $3. I've tried to play through Breath of Death 7 before, but would always become disinterested throughout the beginning of the game and would put it down to play something else. But now that I have sat down and played this, I absolutely love this game. I really enjoy a lot of what this game has to offer and the kind of passion that the 2 people of Zeboyd Games put into this game, especially the other RPG influences that are within Breath of Death 7. The style of Breath of Death 7 is a pixelated cartoony style. I really liked a lot of the character designs as well as character portraits and overall color scheming. The major influences throughout Breath of Death 7, from what I've noticed, are Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, and Mother, the 1989 classic NES game. The battle scenes within Breath of Death are especially reminiscent of Mother, with black backgrounds and very simple white interfaces. Enemies within battle scenes are also middle-aligned, just like Mother. As for Breath of Death 7's sound, I really like the soundtrack. A lot of the tracks within Breath of Death 7 are really catchy. Favorites include the cave theme, the battle theme, the town theme, and the final area theme. What really surprised me about the soundtrack is that it was higher quality than what I thought it would be going into it. Normally with this type of game, the soundtrack is in chiptune, as to play with the influences presented within the game. But within Breath of Death 7, it sounds like they used higher quality samples of instrumentation, or perhaps even real instrumentation, although I don't know behind the scenes. The only thing I wish was better about the sound within Breath of Death 7 was that I wish tracks would loop better, because they just kind of fade out and start again. And I wish tracks would continue after battle scenes. Normally when you enter a battle scene and exit it again, the track that was playing would just start over, and I thought that kind of made the game feel a little repetitive at times. I was really positive of the narrative within Breath of Death 7. I found a lot of the humor presented within the game very funny. It's very referential, but not in the Guacamelee sense. It's more referential within the conventions of the RPG genre, rather than specific games within the genre. Breath of Death 7 also doesn't take itself too seriously. There are often times when the game will comment on itself, like its short length and its low price, as well as characters just kind of seemingly falling in love out of nowhere. I really like the ending of Breath of Death 7. It surprised me. I thought it was going to go one way, but it went in another. There's not much of an overarching story within Breath of Death 7. It's more about the characters and the humor and kind of the influences that Zeboyd pulls and put into this game, and kind of make the player feel at home within this RPG space that they've built. I thought the game was at its best when it was mashing together fantasy and science fiction elements. It's kind of like what the Mother series does, but more explicit in this game. There are clear clashes that are here that I thought were intriguing and thought could have been more fleshed out. Moving on to the gameplay of Breath of Death 7, I thought the settings within Breath of Death 7 were fine, if a bit standard. For example, you have your overworld, dungeons, towns, factories, graveyards, etc., etc. Gameplay also felt a bit standard. It's your normal kind of JRPG experience with an overworld and turn-based combat and random encounters, as well as like stores and towns and all this other stuff that you would possibly be familiar with if you played any other JRPG before. The combo system, though, I think is unique to this game, and I really liked what it kind of did for this game. So what the combo system is within Breath of Death 7 is that every time you hit an enemy, a hit gets added to your combo counter. And some moves within the game would count as multiple hits. And so you would build this up, and then certain characters would have combo boosts and breaks that they could then use to deal high amounts of damage onto enemies. I really liked this concept and what it did for Breath of Death 7, as it kind of made me think ahead of time of what moves I was going to use and how I was going to build up in certain ways. Staying on battles, the end of battles within Breath of Death 7 reward the player with gold, experience, and some MP, as well as regain the health of all of the party members of the player, which I thought was pretty cool and made grinding a lot easier within this game if you were grinding, which I didn't find myself grinding that much, if at all, within Breath of Death 7. Battles within Breath of Death 7 are really quick. Normally, battles within JRPGs take a little bit, and I see some complaints of people who don't normally like JRPGs about those battles being a bit slow and a slog to kind of get through. But here in Breath of Death 7, they're quick. They go by like that. And so there's a couple of things that kind of contribute to this. First, within battles, you have a myriad of things that you can use, like unite techniques, techs, magic, dodging, protecting, attacking, or using potions. Players are also incentivized to have quick battles because the lesser turns you have within a battle, the more MP you are rewarded at the end of a battle. However, I do have one complaint with that kind of MP regaining system, because at maximum you could usually earn MP within the single digits, and near the second half of the game, this wasn't really balanced as characters would progress and gain newer abilities, stronger abilities that consumed more MP. It just felt like the system wasn't as useful as it was in the beginning of the game, so I thought that could have been a bit more balanced within Breath of Death. Gold was another one that I kind of had a problem with within Breath of Death. Gold in this game felt it felt cliche in a way, where it was only used to buy weapons and armors and that's it. Gold isn't really used for anything else, and so I feel like Zeboyd just kind of wanted gold in the game because that's what other JRPGs have within their games. But I feel like they could have taken gold out of this game, and Breath of Death 7 would have still been fine, and you could have gotten new armors and weapons just by finding chests throughout the world, or perhaps talking to certain NPCs. And I think at the end of it all, at the end of this project, Zeboyd just really wanted to convey that kind of classic JRPG experience. And so a lot of the stuff that kind of felt standard to me was intended for those who love JRPGs within Zeboyd's eyes. And I think this worked really well in some aspects, but at the same time, it's hard to kind of differentiate this from some other JRPGs that are considered classics now that other people will probably play first before they play this. And then which once they come to this game, they might feel like this is not really as unique or something that they really should cling on to. Kind of like how I felt when I first tried to play this game and would become disinterested within the first couple towns. So I think even though Zeboyd really made a game that they just wanted to kind of charge $3 for and kind of throw out there, they could have at least made Breath of Death a little bit more unique within its genre and more of kind of a standout game, because I think the standardness of this game works to its detriment. Now, I mentioned that battles were quick within Breath of Death 7. However, some battles within the game would be a little bit more challenging than others. In fact, for certain groups of enemies, if you weren't paying attention, they could really screw your day over and would be able to defeat your party very quickly. So sometimes you would kind of have to grind, or maybe have to slow down and pay attention a little bit, making battles a little longer. But still, within the context of the genre and other games and how other battles can be way slower, Breath of Death 7's battles are still relatively quick. Now, Breath of Death 7 also has a score attack mode, which I thought was pretty neat. In this mode, you cannot gain any experience points, and random battles do not show up, so you basically have to fight bosses and find the better weapons within the game, and kind of impose a really hard challenge upon yourself. And I found this to be very fun, and required me to have knowledge of characters and what kind of level bonuses I would choose for them, and how I would kind of build my party for these tougher bosses. I thought it added an extra layer of depth and challenge. So if you beat this game, definitely check out the score attack mode. I thought it was really cool. And something I touched upon briefly there was gaining bonuses when characters level up. So when characters do level up, you will usually get a chance between two options for a bonus that you can have for your character. And sometimes this will boil down to a technique that your character could learn, or maybe what stats the character would gain. For example, the character Sarah could either gain Hailstorm, which has a lower attack rate, a lower attack value, but adds more hits to your combo counter, or you could get like Snowflake, which does 1 hit to your combo counter, but has a higher attack rate and ignores defense. Or you could have you could have 2 options of plus strength or plus magic. And so you could have a different playthrough throughout Breath of Death 7 if you play again and kind of build your characters in a different way. So in my first playthrough of the game, Sarah had high agility, but within the second playthrough, she had high magic. And this kind of changed strategies throughout kind of the second half of the game. And I thought this kind of added a little bit of replay value within Breath of Death 7. Overall, Breath of Death 7 is very short, which I really liked. It worked really well with the flow of this game. And I think for anybody who might not like the kind of slower experience that JRPGs have to offer, will find some sort of enjoyment in this game because of how kind of quick it kind of presents itself, does what it has to do, and then leaves. I think that kind of short length and quick pace within itself is enough to feel unique within the genre. So to kind of wrap up my thoughts on Breath of Death 7, I really liked this game, and I'm glad I gave it another chance and sat down and really played through the whole experience. If I were to give it a final score, I would give it a 7 out of 10. I thought the high points of the game were its characters, its humor, and the passion that Zeboyd had for the JRPG genre and what they brought here to Breath of Death 7. While the lowest points of Breath of Death were its kind of standardness and how it kind of felt cliche within the genre by having some of kind of the same elements that the other games within the genre kind of have. But I would still recommend this to any RPG player who kind of wants more out of the genre, who kind of wants a more lighthearted, funny experience, who kind of wants a shorter experience, a quicker paced experience, and an RPG that feels like it comes from fans of the genre. Playing Breath of Death 7 really makes me excited to play its companion piece, Cthulhu Saves the World, as well as any other Zeboyd games as well. I've seen that they've done like 3 other games that I think I really want to play as well, and kind of get to know this developer a little more. So that concludes my thoughts on Breath of Death 7, the beginning. If you liked my kind of thoughts rambling videos, then I don't really want you to like or subscribe, as I'm not really doing it for that. I just kind of want to get my thoughts out there on games. But if you could just follow my social media links or check out my online portfolio, that would be really awesome. So thank you for watching and have a great day.